As many of you may or may not know, I'm not a big fan of gun shows lately, primarily because they used to be one of my favorite things to do in the world. I loved going to gun shows. I just walk around and see so many guns, some of which I've never seen in my life, I've only heard of. But then around 2020, of course, that all just went to heck. There was a gun shortage, an ammo shortage, and then, really, it kind of was slim pickings for a while. You go there, there's a lot of tables selling non-gun related items, things like toys or new windows for your home, that kind of thing. And then it kind of started to pick up until the new White House gun policy that essentially says that you are not allowed to sell your own guns in a private collection, and at least not profit off of it. So, for example, if I buy a gun and then later decide to sell it, according to the Constitution, I have that right. But if I profit off of it, or if I'm making any sort of income off of the sale of that gun, now I can no longer do that. Well, that's a big problem for gun shows, because if you've bought several guns at gun shows, and I have, what you find is that about 50-50, if not less, are actual gun dealers. Usually at the most, you got 50% gun dealers, and they're selling mostly brand new guns. To really get those old, odd collector guns, you got to get them from the gun collectors. Well, gun collectors can't sell their guns at gun shows anymore. So how has this affected the gun shows? Now, I'm going to put a link to the policy here, because that's not what this is about. We've made plenty of videos on this new policy. I just want to specifically talk about how it is affecting gun shows, because what I have seen, at least in my area, and talking to a few folks on the West Coast that go to gun shows as well, what is being seen is that there was this slow comeback for gun shows, where suddenly you'd go and you're like, wow, there's actually a good amount of guns here finally. It's not just a couple tables have guns and everybody's fighting over them and they're greatly overpriced. Like, no more of that. We're getting back to the normal. But ultimately what just took place is you took 50% of the guns out of the gun shows. And really you took about 85 to 90% of the collectible guns from gun shows. That's my biggest problem. I'm not in the business of selling guns, so it didn't affect me in that way. But I know it affected a lot of other folks that way. There's a lot of people who earned a pretty decent living selling their gun collection, which the Constitution says you can, but according to new White House policy, you cannot. And as a result, what we're seeing is you got about 50% of the guns at gun shows now, that you had really in like 2022, which wasn't a whole heck of a lot compared to pre-2019, but it was still a decent amount. Now you got about 50%. And now you also have about 90% of those oddities, those cool collectible guns, the older guns, the war guns, the battle rifle, all those things that were really pretty darn cool that you just kind of come across every now and then because it's in somebody's collection. It's a unique oddity. Gun dealers typically don't sell those things. Usually if you see a gun dealer at a gun show, they have like a bunch of brand new guns. And maybe a couple used ones, but mostly a bunch of brand new guns. So ultimately gun shows have really turned into mostly brand new gun shows. And not a whole lot of them compared to what we saw. I would like to pose the question, kind of what are you seeing in your neck of the woods around this country, specifically when it comes to collectible gun, like the odd things, the things that you've maybe only seen one or two in your whole life, not like, this table had a bunch of brand new Glocks and a bunch of brand new Smith & Wessons. I mean, some cool old stuff. Has that virtually disappeared like it has around here? Or is it still running strong? And how is it running strong? Because gun dealers around here typically, again, they do sell some used stuff. Don't get me wrong. But mostly what they sell is new stuff. And that's kind of what you're seeing at the gun shows now, which is really just a sad reality. So again, put what you're seeing below. And any thoughts or insight, again, put that below as well.